Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Warcraft video. I've got to be real with you, this is a spoilerific one, so do proceed with caution. The end of Battle for Azeroth is here, and it's both a little strange and rather expected. Regardless, it does give us a lot to talk about, not only regarding the lore, but also, well, cinematic technique and storytelling. Now I'm going to whet your appetite with something rather spooky. Blizzard's big shot of you and Ny'alotha here mirrors the one of you and Ny'alotha from patch 8.1.5. So think of that what you will. And of course, a massive thank you to our patrons for supporting this content. Over there, you can get our really cool physical loot. You will actually get 5 items, bookmark, remaster of first ever print, and then the priest pack. And we're also going to be posting a pretty cool BTS today on the behind the scenes workflow of our new team. So thanks to them, let's get into the video. So in patch 8.3, Ny'alotha is attempting to manifest his vision upon reality, as seen in the horrific visions, which are a new game feature. His allies at the same time are attacking the Titan Forges in the Vale and Uldum, but of course we are able to defend them. Now, after getting Rad'dan sort of back in the game, we come up with our plan to defeat Ny'alotha. So, the champions of Azeroth are going to make their way to him in Ny'alotha. They're going to fight through his massive carapace, and then they're going to destroy him at the core. Of course, the plan is not to do that by just whacking him with our swords a bit, it is to use the Heart of Azeroth. So, Mother and Magni have a plan to use the engine of Ny'alotha to help power the Forge of Origination. That power will then be channeled into Ny'alotha through your Heart of Azeroth, but with Mother warning us that we're only going to get one shot at it, making it pretty darn clear that we'll need to get up close and personal with him. Now, during the raid, it's revealed that Azshara planned to use Ny'alotha to destroy Ny'alotha. She essentially thought that what she could do is get us to free Ny'alotha with the Heart of Azeroth in her raid, and then she would defeat us, and then she would kill him with the dagger. Her plan, of course, clearly failed, as we see her being tortured in 8.3. Now, she gives us the dagger in 8.3 and tells us to destroy him, but it seems like we just ignore her advice and we continue onwards with Magni and Mother's plan to use the combined power of Azeroth herself and the various bits of Titan technology that bolster her to destroy Ny'alotha. But interestingly, Rathian takes the dagger and he says he's going to examine it for signs of treachery. And, well, it's a bit mysterious after that, and trust me, that's something we're going to get to very soon in this video. But okay, with that, it is time for the big data mine cutscenes that really are what spurred on this video. So, we blast through his carapace, and we fight the very essence of Ny'alotha in the Ny'alotha the Corruptor encounter, the final one of the new raid. Now, during this encounter, he's continually teasing us in a very old god fashion. He's referencing us never leaving the circle, the perfection of the void, our struggle being futile, and that he likes deals. I mean, he even says this, deals, I like deals. I mean, that's a line that basically is straight from Bomb Samdi, isn't it? So that's something to think about. Now, rather reminiscent of the Yogg-Saron encounter, he even shows us a vision of Azshara and Sylvanas' deal, seemingly with the point being to spook us about Sylvanas. Regardless though, by the time he reaches 0 HP, we are seemingly taken by him, and it leads to this cutscene. Ny'alotha says, "Enough, your mind, your will are mine." The player character is alone in a room full of dead, void-ridden bodies. Upon further inspection though, those bodies look like either Illyria or Sylvanas. However, it's quite hard to tell, and it could just be a placeholder. After all, it would, make sense that they are your fellow raid members, or it could be hinting at something a bit more spooky. But regardless, as Ny'alotha speaks, you just find yourself drawn towards him. Mother warns that you are almost entirely corrupted. Magni encourages us, and right as he does that, him and Mother kick off their plan, activating the Forge and channeling its power through the Heart of Azeroth. You snap out of your daze, you rise up, and you absolutely blast the ever-living demonetization out of Ny'alotha. It then fades to white, but just before it does, if you look at Ny'alotha's brain, you see it begin to erupt with the power of Azeroth. Is this the plan backfiring on us? Is this him absorbing the power, or is it him getting completely obliterated? Regardless, the visual anime-ness of this certainly did catch on, and going through the audience feedback thus far, it does seem to skew negative. There is a lot of people just sort of thinking, is that it? And people being disappointed that a villain built up since the puzzle box of Yogg-Saron, arguably a bit earlier, just got fridged by 2 MacGuffins and a portable MacGuffin. So yeah, I get that, and to be real with you, if this is the end of the Black Empire, Empire, yeah, I'm very disappointed and I would not be happy, but I think there are other things to talk about here, not least because there clearly is a cut to a pre-rendered cinematic, but first let's just go over the other info that we have. So there's an epilogue conversation with Magni in the Chamber of the Heart, and this one's kind of interesting. Magni says that Azeroth has been crying out in pain ever since Sargeras stabbed her, and that in her hour of need, she lent us her power. He says, today, at long last, she's free from the grasp of the old gods. Her song rings clear and strong throughout this chamber. And indeed, the chamber glows, and he decrees that you are a champion of Azeroth. Yeah. Magni thinks we've won. He really does. He thinks we've won, that Azeroth is free, and it all seems incredibly straightforward and happy, doesn't it? Ny'alotha is a character, right, who's been plotting for thousands of years, yet we, along with Mother and him, have just came up with a plan. We headed into Ny'alotha, we executed our plan, we killed him perfectly, and we saved the day. If that's actually what Blizzard are doing, that's so simple, very boring, and I think, yes, it would be a massive letdown and a complete waste of Ny'alotha as a villain. However, there might be more here than has been suggested, and I think we should talk about that. So it is indeed true that Illyria and Turalyon talk of Ny'alotha's defeat after the raid, suggesting that he has actually been defeated, and they also talk about the need to hunt down Sylvanas, but we've got to pay very careful attention to their words. Here's what she has to say. The whispers did not end with his defeat. In fact, it seems only new voices have joined the chorus. When I think of the nightmares he forced into my mind, and then she trails off. So yeah, they think that he's gone, but the new whispers have joined that chorus. Now, that surely isn't a good thing, and her referencing the nightmares that he forced into her mind, I think that's clearly referring to the horrific visions, because the horrific vision of Stormwind is focused on her downfall and that of her family. Overall, though, the fact that there are new whispers, that does suggest that there's more going on here than meets the eye. So, the first cutscene, as I said, ends with a dip to white. Now, chances are that will then cut into a pre-rendered cinematic with the same style as we saw with Ashara or Argus. Now, the contents of that cinematic are, of course, a complete mystery. Will they just be the destruction of Ny'alotha in very shiny detail? To be honest with you, I do find that hard to believe. I mean, think about what, say, Argus would have looked like without his final cinematic. I mean, it would have just looked like we destroyed him, and that would have been that. But the cinematic, of course, revealed the appearance of Sargeras with him stabbing Azeroth, and that being a major thing moving the plot forward. So that means our patch 7.3 PTR era judgments would not really have been on the mark there. So we've got to apply that precedent to this situation, and this is where we go back to the Black Blade of the Empire. Ashara had planned to use it to destroy Ny'alotha. So why would that work? Well, the Black Blade is an unthinkably ancient relic from the Black Empire. It's rumored that Ny'alotha was actually a fifth old god who was trapped inside that blade by the others. Now, if this blade is an old god created weapon designed to subdue an old god, you can see how it would be very relevant here. Now, Rathian seems to have been the last person who had the Black Blade on them. Now, we just don't know what he does with it after that point, and you should also note that Rathian was key in the creation of the anti-corruption legendary cloaks in this patch, and he also himself was corrupted, with us freeing him during the first boss fight. So, I'd say this, what if Rathian makes a really big move during the patch cinematic? What if he thinks it's best to subdue Ny'alotha with the blade? So he, jumps in last minute, big surprise, and does something major with the blade against Ny'alotha. I mean, he is later involved in an epilogue discussion that seems to contain Marithra, Alexstrasza, Kael'gos' mother, Ebonhorn himself, and Chromie, and well, that's all the dragon aspects. Now, what if he maybe believes that it's time to re-empower the dragon aspects? What if that is tied to his actions during that cinematic? You can see how there could be room for quite a large reveal there. Now, there's also a slightly more wild plan. There is one I think that's really quite ballsy. Now, this patch is called Visions of Ny'alotha. It's all about Ny'alotha's dark vision of the future manifesting itself in reality. So what if he succeeds? Right? What if he succeeds? And I mean, it is just a vision. I mean, what if we actually lose and that cutscene is a lie? We see Ny'alotha getting destroyed, but maybe we just empower him further. Hell, what if we're actually dead? Then it would make sense for Sylvanas and Thanos to roll in thinking they're absolute pure hot demonetization, and they pull us into the Shadowlands, right? I guess, that would be something more akin to maybe that Shadowlands leak, or maybe Bolvar does the same, and that's how you get the Lich King back. I mean, hey, there has been a Datamined Death Knight introduction cinematic in the same wave of Datamined cinematics that we're talking about today. So yeah, what if we actually lose? But Bolvar is the one who, later comes to snap us out of it, leading to a Bolvar, driven Shadowlands or Death-related expansion. And because of that, it just will be interesting to see where Blizzard takes it. Will we just kill Ny'alotha, destroy his plan, and then hunt down Sylvanas? Or will there be that twist? Because, I mean, look, say what you want about Blizzard storytelling recently, and I certainly have, but there's one thing we do know. They're a bunch of twisty boys. They love their plot twists, and I would not be surprised if they've got something larger in store here. Now, to be clear, if they just pull a kata ending, just that, it's you who fires the shot instead of Thrall, yeah, I think that would be an extremely lame waste of potential. I think it wouldn't be that great, and I think it would signify them just trying to cut and run with BFA and get away from it super fast. I mean, after all, 8.3 is very light new content. There's a lot of reuse there. So, I mean, now that I've said all of that about the story here, there are a few extra things that I would like to say, and this is things sort of aside from the story that people have talked about. So one of them is the cutscenes, right? These sort of in-game cutscenes, they're not pre-rendered. Basically, it's just Blizzard, like manually controlling your in-game camera and then just grabbing a bunch of models, including your character's model, and just, puppeting them about a bit. That's what they've done for some things. Now, they can work really well in an example like when Agrimar slams his big sword down us, in Argus. I think that was really, really cool. And there were some instances of that where it was more focused on, music, a cool scene, cool art, bit of nice cinematography. But whenever Blizzard sort of use them for, well, character dialogue and things like that, I've got to say, I think they look really janky. I'd actually rather Blizzard just had their good voice acting and their writing be a thing that happens while you're just looking through the regular, just your regular screen. I mean, I'll say this. Imagine if the Fall of Arthas, right, where, not Bolvar, when Tyrion breaks out of his ice cube, smashes Frostmourne, and then raises us all up. Imagine if that was an in-game cutscene like, that type. I think it really wouldn't have been that good, because I think what was really so, effective about that was you were just there, your character was dead, and it was dead in just a very, very normal game mechanics, right? And then whenever he, did his thing, you were kind of just watching that from, I guess, the perspective of your character. Whenever he resurrected you all, it was very much within, how the game works. Your little resurrection button appears and you click it. And I think that was a very good use of, the game mechanics. Whereas if you kind of look at this, I think just relying on those cutscenes is a little bit iffy, because Blizzard just can't pull them off that well, frankly. I mean, I looked at some of the Final Fantasy Shadowbringers and Stormbreaker. I looked at some of their in-game cutscenes, and I'll be real with you, I mean, they don't have character expressions down that well, because that's just too expensive to, I guess, manually animate all of that. But they've got the lip sync going, and when you look at how they use their camera, it's really dramatic, right? It is better than what Blizzard do. So it feels like they're trying to play that game, but they just don't have the system. They don't have the workflow in place. So I really would like it if Blizzard would just take a bit of a second look at their approach there, maybe focus a bit more on the pre-rendered cinematics using the in-game art style stuff, and just focusing more on having really good quality, written stuff in their game, and not really worrying too much about, taking the camera out of the player's hands. So that's one thing that I would say there. And then another one is, I just want to talk about the subversion of expectations and the big sort of plot twists, because some of the things I've talked about here, I mean, I think they're a bit disconnected from player agency. If it just turns out Rathian goes and, does a big shocking thing and then something else happens, or, if we do kind of all just wake up and we've lost. I mean, that's just the kind of thing where if it happens too much, it starts to feel a little bit cheap, and players sort of would stop, they'd kind of stop believing what they see on screen, or they'd stop having much significance, or, sort of putting significance into what they're seeing on screen. And I think with so much of the BFA narrative happening in transmedia narrative content, or being so character driven by the likes of, Sylvanas and co, that I think players have maybe felt a bit disconnected from that experience, and maybe that in combination with trying to play too many narrative tricks in the player, I would just worry that Blizzard are playing with fire there, and it might not work out as well as they think. But anyway, that's just some of my more sort of technical storytelling concerns with what they're doing, and then a sort of a wider, deeper look into the lore, because I think It certainly is interesting what we've got, right? It seems so simple and in a way so boring that I'm kind of thinking it can't really be what Blizzard are doing, given they've spent so much time teasing old gods and, you know, having their prophecies and their whispers. And indeed, tomorrow's video is going to go really deep into whispers. It's one I've been working on for a decent amount of time. So yeah, you know, I just love to think, or love to hear, what do you think's going to happen here? Do you think this is literally what's happening, or do you think there's going to be a big twist or a big turn in the plot? I would love to know what you've got to say, so please let me know down below or on Twitter or wherever. And yeah, with that, thank you very much for watching this video. Be sure to check out the Patreon for all the cool loot, and I will see you next time.